All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to a shockingly jubilant episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show with your host. I am Alex Baquero, and this is Christopher Mickey Mouse Condit, your American villain voices, as always, serving up the lukewarmiest of lukewarm opinions. As always, below our heads, listen, subscribe, rate, review, all the things. This is week 2 of our new format. More episodes, less frequent, or I should say more frequent episodes that are shorter. We got there in the end. It's been a long day. So keep an eye on your feeds. I don't actually know. We didn't talk about whether we're going to cut this one up into 2 or not. This might be our one massive podcast that we release, given that it's a quick turnaround to the Newcastle match on Sunday morning. Chris, happy birthday to your father-in-law. Happy birthday to patron saint of the pod, Big Walt.
Big Walt, happy birthday.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We are prepping for the snow that may come or may not come, who knows. And Big Walt is getting ready to leave North Carolina to beat the snow, going back up north, which is hilarious because he's driving and then the snow is going to follow him up the coast. We're doing great. I cannot believe the result today. You and I both thought that there were going to be goals in this game, and there was one, and there could have been more. But I'll take the result.
A lot more.
Yeah, I'll take the result all day long, and a 1-0 win on the road against a decent side in Europe. Who can be upset with that other than Unai Emery and Yuri Tielemans?
Ooh. Teaser. We'll get to that later. Yeah, really interesting. I think I saw in the pre-match that Fener have won like 12 of their last 15 or so European matches at home, something like that. We did not unearth that stat. Once again, we apologize. We did not do the requisite research that you all expect of us. But we were absolutely right in our prediction that they were going to attack, that they were going to dominate possession, and that this really could be an open one with a lot of goals in it. And while we didn't necessarily get the finishing due to the players that were on the pitch did not get that finishing, we did get a lot of opportunities, and there certainly was a lot of end-to-end action. That was a really, really, really exciting one to watch.
It was. And that was, I mean, I think I remember toward the end of the pod that we last did that I said, at least I think it's going to be entertaining. I hope it's not 3-0 like you predicted it would be. And I also predicted a loss, though. But yeah, so it was, I mean, it was an end-to-end game with a lot of opportunities and not as much finishing. Some interesting moments, though. And you could tell, I think, from the Fenerbahce side, I think John Duran might have been pressing a little bit, that he was absolutely trying to get a goal against his old squad, because he was holding the ball in positions where you would expect maybe him to look off and pass because there were opportunities to set up a teammate for an easy shot, and he looked to shoot virtually every time, and it was almost always blocked pretty easily by the Villa defense.
Yeah, as we talk about the lineup and the approach, Lindelof and Mings as the center back pairing certainly was interesting. We were right that Unai Emery needed to or wanted to rotate a little bit in this game. We didn't predict either of those guys starting, thought the rotation would be elsewhere, but turned out to be the right call. Mings handled John Duran very well. I'm sure they had lots of practice battles that or at least like practice studying, I suppose, that gave him a little bit of a leg up there. It's kind of funny to go on Twitter today and see so many Villa fans doing a victory lap on the John Duran sale, talking about how teammates clearly hate him and no one wants to play with him and he's garbage and we sold him at the peak of his value. We probably did sell him at the peak of his value, at least in recent years. But Morgan Rogers also was wearing his shirt after the match. So I don't know that there's any real ill will amongst the Villa players towards John Duran. I think maybe that was evidence that was a bit overblown.
I agree. And I mean, if nothing else, it's very clear that Villa offered Arsenal Ollie Watkins first. And
Yeah.
when Arsenal comically lowballed it, as they usually do. They either comically go low or comically go high, never really in between. But then they offered, then they got the offer from Saudi for Duran for 86 or 82 million or whatever it was. So when you get an offer like that, you almost have to take it, given the position that Villa were in.
Yeah, very few players on planet Earth are not getting sold for that amount of money.
Right.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about John Duran. We're here to talk about Aston Villa. The other surprise, which honestly was a screw up on our part, Leon Bailey is cup tied to Roma, so could not appear in the team nor on the bench. There also is some news. I think Ajax is interested in him now, so maybe he won't be staying for the rest of the year like you and I were trying to manifest in the last pod. Jadon Sancho gets the start. No back-to-backs for Evan Gasson. No real other options out there for us to put in.
Right.
And yeah, I guess this is where we start, Chris. I know it's a really low bar given the performances thus far this year, but has to be Jadon Sancho's best performance in a Villa shirt.
I mean, I think it far and away is, and it's got his first goal, which I do want to give credit.
Well taken header, good reactions.
Yes, like it took a flick off of a defender. Matty Cash's ball in was a decent ball. It just didn't quite clear to the defender and took a flick, and Sancho reacted well and then put the header in a beautiful spot where he had the keeper wrong-footed actually off the header.
Mm-hmm.
So, but beyond that, I thought it was probably his best game, even without the goal. The goal obviously pushes it well above. But yes, low bar, but yes, his best game. And, I hope that it can continue because Villa need that player and need results from that player, especially if the guy wearing the striker shirt isn't going to perform. We'll get to that later.
Wink, wink, hint, hint.
But beyond that, I like we've talked a lot about confidence building moments, and you hope maybe seeing the ball hit the back of the net for the first time for Jadon Sancho for Aston Villa in a game, maybe that'll build the confidence and get him going this season. Clearly, Emery is going to stick with him because he has no other options in part. But even before that, he was putting Sancho in situations where you and I were laughing off the idea of Sancho getting more playing time. So let's hope that this continues and this builds into something where he can be a really effective player for the club this season, because at this rate and the way things are going in the transfer window, we're going to need him and need him to perform quite well.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know what it is about Turkey or Fenerbahce or who's in the squad now or what, but he just seemed interested. I won't even say up for it because I feel like that's such a soccer cliche to say that, oh, he was really up for it today. If Sancho was going to be up for a game, it would have been the Manchester United one. It would have been the Manchester City one, like places where he'd spent time before and clearly didn't turn up. So he just seemed engaged for large parts of the season. He has just seemed utterly disinterested in doing anything in a Villa shirt. And yet in this one, getting into really good opportunities, the passing was good. I think he was the one who played it through for Buendia in the second half, where there was an opportunity that we'll talk about a little bit later. Dribbling, like willing to take guys on and actually beat a man, getting into open positions and getting other shots, not just that one. Now, at the same time, I am still going to give him the Ollie Watkins award for the game, in that, oh my God, the opportunities that he missed made me want to rip my eyelids off. I think specifically I think it was the first half, he's in acres of space. Late first half. Acres of space in the right-hand side, gets the ball, touches too heavy, cuts onto his left, beats the keeper anyway, by the way, and then somehow doesn't fire it into the net. There were one or two other opportunities that weren't quite that good, but yeah, scored a goal, had what you would consider a great game, and yet still incredibly frustrating. I think that's the Ollie Watkins Award of the day.
I mean, if you want to take the positive side of it, because to be honest, there hasn't been that much positive about Sancho's tenure at Villa during games. The positive side of it was he created big opportunities, and
He did.
so XG philosophy would tell you he's the best player on the pitch because he created the big opportunities, not because he finished them. Great players create opportunities, don't finish them.
Don't feed the narrative, Chris.
That is what he said. They said.
Supposed to be better than that.
But
it's not why people are with us.
In all sincerity, the positive is that he created those big chances and opportunities, and the hope would be that he then will progress to finishing them as he gains confidence, and frankly, as he continues to get more and more minutes, because now we're seeing him really get a steady diet of minutes, much more so than we did early in the season.
Yeah, listen, he had nothing to build on. There was no foundation. So performance this good, and listen, I'm talking about being frustrated with him. Like, we won the game because of him, and he was a key contributor throughout. So probably my man of the match, I think. Yeah.
Marco Bizot.
That's fair. Probably Marco Bizot. All right, second man of the match. I just I really hope that he kind of builds on this one and doesn't further win the Ollie Watkins Award of going missing for the next 7 games in a row.
Feel bad that we're banging on Ollie.
You teased it, and that's probably where we should go next. Talk to me a little bit about Villa's much maligned striker.
I mean, he had another tough day at the office, frankly. He didn't create much. He struggled to finish. When he got opportunities, I will say I think the book or the strategy from Fenerbahce was to be very physical with Ollie Watkins, because they were pretty consistently tough with him. I mean, he got stepped on that one time, I think in the second half around the 60th mark or so. And there was a lot of clutching and grabbing throughout as the game wore on, but Ollie struggled again today. And I think it's been a problem for a long time now. It's been well over a year since we've seen a consistent Ollie Watkins up top. And I will say the fact that Villa have performed as well as they have in that space of time is actually kind of crazy. You know, like what other team can you think of in the situation where Villa are, where they don't have the endless resources of a top tier club, but they can still consistently win games in bunches without play from their striker?
Yeah, I can't give you one. Prime Barcelona, when they were playing Andres Iniesta as the false 9.
Okay, well, yeah, with was that Iniesta and shoot. I mean, that was like a super team, though. Like, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I know that.
They didn't have. They didn't have an out-and-out striker.
I gave you an answer. That's the best I got.
Didn't Messi play the 10? Like, isn't that Messi? Isn't that Iniesta and Messi?
Yeah, that was Iniesta, Messi, prime Xavi. Yeah, I think that was post David Villa. When David Villa left for MLS, they played without a 9 for almost a whole season.
Yeah.
And Pep Guardiola has done that with Man City a couple times, where he hasn't necessarily loved the main striker, and you've had like Ilkay Gundogan as a false 9, I suppose. But these are all-time great teams. I'm being facetious.
Like they just had to suffer through other great players, like, you know, at the other 10 positions.
Yeah, listen, I think 9 times out of 10 when he got the ball today, Ollie Watkins was poor. You're right. They definitely did want to be more physical with him. I found it interesting that the 2 times that Ollie did create something was when he got to the byline. What you like to say, a couple years past was vintage Emery getting to the byline and then cutting the ball back. I remember him doing that at least twice to carve out a couple opportunities for us. And I was surprised that he didn't go to that a little more often. There were a few times that he kind of had the ball off at, I'll say, a 45-degree angle to the net and seemed confused about what to do with it. Um, and this kind of parlays into a much bigger point that I think I'll give us a pat on the back in our preview for as well. We talked about how Fenerbahce really wanted to funnel things to the middle, right? They give up a lot of shots through the middle, and that is a defensive strategy of theirs to try and bring it into the middle where they're strongest. And yet a lot of what Villa was able to create was by utilizing the space down the wings and on the width and behind their fullbacks. The opportunity that Sancho got that I was talking about earlier, run off the wing, Sancho's goal, a cross in from Matty Cash, Ollie Watkins drifting wide, getting to the byline, cutting back. And so I do think that for a team that is loath to use their wide players as wide players, or to really get their outside backs too far forward in many instances, I think clearly Unai Emery saw the same thing out of Fenerbahce that you and I did and said, we are going to use this to our advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing I can add to that. You're 100% right.
Chris, you and I texted about this a little bit, so I guess I'll just throw it in here. We can have the debate in front of anybody. Should Morgan Rogers' goal have counted? I've seen a lot of social media activity about this.
By letter of the law, it shouldn't have. And like I texted you that in part in frustration, but my real point was about the referee's positioning on that play. And like the question has to come, and I understand that the referee's a human being, so he's going to make mistakes, right? They are. They're human. They have problems. They make issues, or they make mistakes.
Just like you as a media person are going to call him out for every single one of them.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So but the question is, my man, what are you doing in that situation, standing roughly 7 or 8 yards from the goal? Where are you going? What are you doing there? Because there's always the possibility that the ball is going to ricochet and come off of you there, because you're not far away enough to react to it. Of course you're going to get hit by it. The issue I had with it was Rodgers never would have recovered that ball, right? But that hitting the referee and then a drop ball given, which then was the end of the half, takes pressure off of Fenerbahce. So I don't know. We can't say what would have happened if Fener had recovered that ball as it deflected. Then we're not talking about it at all. But we don't know if Villa would have been able to keep possession there and keep the pressure on and maybe get a goal before half. And you have to question the referee's positioning there. And I think that he just got caught probably ball watching a little bit and drifting in as the ball came in. That's my suspicion. There's no way of knowing without hearing from him, and you never hear from officials, especially in this sport. I think it would be good if you did, but that was a very clear and obvious mistake by him. But by letter of the law, no, the goal should not have counted.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add to that. Would good sportsmanship have been for there to be a drop ball that Fenerbahce at least kicks back to Tyrone Mings or something? Maybe, but they don't have to do that. Like you said, the letter of the law, ball hit the referee in the box. Certainly Villa were not necessarily going to get that shot out of it, but for the referee. So in the same way that it feels really unfair to Villa to give the ball to Fenerbahce, I think at the same time to let that goal stand obviously would be really unfair to Fenerbahce, and that Villa don't get that opportunity but for the referee. So it is what it is. Let's jump to the second half. really seemed like there was going to be a second goal in this. It still continued to be played at a frenetic pace end to end. It seemed like for large parts of the second half, Fenerbahce were teeing off, and really you expected, particularly Anderson Talisca gets an open shot at Marco Bizot, and he fires it pretty close to him. The shots were falling to the right guys, and they just couldn't finish unless it was an opportunity where they happened to be a foot and a half offsides.
Yeah, I mean, there were quite a few offside goals in the second half.
Yep.
Some closer than others, but most of them not close at all in terms of the offside call.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I thought that there would be another goal. It looked like both teams had opportunities to get one. I would have loved to be a little more comfortable in the end and have Villa get that 2-0 win instead of didn't really have to sweat, but Bizot did have to make a couple of saves to hold off Fenerbahce. So I think on another day, Villa could have had more, and Fenerbahce certainly could have had more as well. I think that your prediction and my prediction of there being lots of goals in this game still looks like it was the right prediction.
Yeah. If that game is played 10 times, I would say 9 of them probably have 3+ goals in them.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, I think that you credit Villa. Marco Bizot made saves when he had to. Tyrone Mings played really well, especially given his
first game since early November, since Go Ahead Eagles.
Yeah. So he played really well, given that he's not had any game time of any sort since then, since I think it was October 13th or 15th or something like that. And ultimately, away in Europe, you take any result you can get. If you get 3 points, you're happy with 3 points away in Europe. I don't think I can complain too much about any of it. There are always things that you can improve, and I'm sure that Emery is going to look at that, and the team will look at what they can improve. But you got the 3, you go back home and be happy with where you are in Europa League.
Yeah. Am I crazy for saying that Emi Buendia should have taken a dive?
No, I don't think you're crazy. But that's also just not the player he is,
Oh man, but the way that Ederson came flying out, and I think he did make a little bit of contact with his foot. I wanted to see him lean to the left a little and just leave that left leg out there.
It's just not what I'm saying when I say that's not the player he is.
I do, but that would have been a stonewall penalty. It was funny as he brought it through. He thought for a sec, he almost Rabona'd it into the goal. Wasn't really there, had to turn around. I was really disappointed because, he didn't have the best day. I thought he had a day that seems to be fairly typical when he starts. He drifted in and out of influence, but I do think being able to draw that penalty would have gone a long way. And with the guys on the field, he might be the penalty taker.
I think he might be.
Yeah. I don't really know who would line up to take
the penalty for us. Can Sancho take penalties? I actually don't know.
I have no idea.
Legitimately.
Yeah, I have no idea what his penalty record is. I know everybody else on the field is bad.
Stinks. Yeah.
I guess it would probably be Buendia or Morgan Rogers, I would guess.
Yeah, but Rogers is not known for his penalties.
No, Rogers is not great either. Yeah. All right. Last thing I want to talk about. Actually, sorry, 2 more things I want to talk about. So Maatsen, Onana, Gasson, and Garcia all come on around 75 minutes, right? It feels like Unai is really trying to quote me, to paraphrase Mean Girls, he's really trying to make Evan and Andres a thing.
He's trying to make fetch happen. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes. And I think some of it is by necessity though, because what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
You can't just play Jadon Sancho for 90 minutes. And that's really you don't have another
And
option.
Rodgers needs rest, and Matty Cash
Yeah,
needs rest. Like those are guys that are playing every minute for us.
correct. So and I'm good trying to get them more minutes to get them comfortable, because there is a player in particular in Gasson. There's a player there. You can see moments where he looks very good, and then he'll probably make a bad pass and turn it over. But there are times where he looks like the fastest and most composed player on the pitch, but then it's very fleeting, and he'll lose possession easily and quickly and all those sort of things. So I can only assume that they're seeing some of that in training, and Emery is trying to get some sort of tune out of those two players. Garcia too. He's if he was, I guess the way to put him today was he was not noticeable.
I'll take it.
So that's a positive. He only played that short space of time, but I don't you can't just play Matty Cash 90 minutes a game every game. It will never work.
Yeah, especially someone who's prone to
Hamstring injuries,
a hamstring or a calf injury pretty much every season. Yeah. I did think it was interesting that after coming on, Gaston seemed to be playing a lot more centrally off of Ollie Watkins. I think the direct sub was him for Morgan Rogers. So I do when we bought him, and this is probably worth rehashing. When we bought him, you and I said, yes, he's played on the right wing. Yes, he played central striker a lot last year. But really where he found the most success and where we saw him being the most successful was that left inside forward.
Yep.
And so we thought that he was coming over to be more of a direct replacement for Marcus Rashford. Much like Harvey Elliott was pushed out of the squad by Emi Buendia, Evan Gasson might have been pushed out of that position a little bit by Emi Buendia. But, getting him into more central spaces, I wonder if we'll see that more over the back half of the season, if Jadon Sancho can continue his form on the right wing. If Leon Bailey does stick around, we need to find another spot for him. And listen, McGinn looks like he's going to be out for a really long time at this point. So we don't really have anyone that's going to rotate into that left or central spot for Buendia and Rogers. It's pretty much them at this point for the rest of the year. So if we can maybe move Gaston around the formation and get something out of him in one of those two roles, I don't hate trying it.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do something, as you said. There's no other option at this point.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to talk about was just putting to bed any controversy about Youri Tielemans' interaction with Unai Emery coming off. Clearly addressed in the post-match, Unai said he's like my son. I think he was just frustrated at the cheap. Did he get a yellow right beforehand?
Yeah.
I think
he got a yellow for delaying on the corner.
Cheap yellow that he got. Apparently they hugged it out in the locker room, according to Jacob Chicken Little Tanswell. So really, this is a non-story. We don't need to talk about it at all.
No. Unai Emery is very demanding of his players. That's all there is to it.
And few. Unai Emery is probably the one thing that he is criticized for in his Villa tenure is his inability to bring in new players and make them integral members of the squad, right? Everyone keeps pointing to the fact that on certain days, 7 out of the 11 starters are from Dean Smith era Aston Villa, right? Youri Tielemans is probably the one guy that has come in under Unai Emery and truly gotten a ton better through Unai Emery and become arguably Villa's most valuable player. Let's roll ahead to the good points. Chris, we won. Could have easily scored 4, as you and I said. I actually look at Unai's reaction to Youri Tielemans as a good thing. He clearly seemed into it when, after the pre-match presser, everyone said that he wasn't interested anymore and he was kind of over it. So I was glad to see that kind of get put to bed. Great to see Amadou Onana back in the squad. and getting 15 minutes there. Hopefully he'll start against Newcastle and be back to full fitness. And what a luxury it is to have Marco Bisot as a backup goalkeeper now, already with 3 shutouts in Europe, and he is the goalkeeper with the most saves in a shutout in Europe, and he holds all top 3 positions. Today being 8, and I believe a couple others with 7.
Yeah, he's played very well, as we expected when he came in. It's great to have him as a number 2, especially given that Emi Martinez has had his share of injury issues this year. I'm very pleased that we have such a capable backup.
Bad points. We stated both of these already. We gave up a ton of shots and a ton of shots on target. I think we gave up 8 on target.
We knew they would, though. I mean, we knew that was going to happen, right?
We did.
That's who they are.
That is who they are. That's how they like to play. Another day we could have lost. I think there's. I say this only as a bad point. We won, and I know you are the 3 points is the 3 points are the 3 points kind of guy. I see a lot of commentary of, oh, Villa's bad time is over. Like, we're in the clear. We're back to another 12-game winning run. And I don't necessarily think that was the dominant performance where I'm like, okay, the games prior to this were a blip. We have no injury issues. There's nothing to worry about moving forward. I'm still worried about the squad depth. I'm still worried about bringing in another striker. I don't think that this one game was the cure to all of our ills. That's all I'll say about that.
It's fair.
But the larger implication on the season, we have now clinched top 8 in the Europa League. So thank God we are avoiding that 2-game playoff round. And thanks to a 90+10 penalty conceded, actually 2 penalties conceded by Midtjylland in their game today that ultimately resulted in a 3-3 draw, Villa are sole possessors of second place in the table, which obviously is huge, as you and I have discussed before. Our last match is against Red Bull Salzburg, who is sitting outside of the top 24, have not had a good European campaign for yet another Red Bull club.
I was going to make the same point. But yeah, all good things. We talked about the need to avoid the playoff, and Villa need to continue now to push on to get one of those top 2 spots.
Chris, let's move ahead to cold water. I'm actually going to skip the first one since I kind of just addressed this by saying that Unai Emery is clearly still involved.
He's not leaving us.
Yeah. The take was that Unai Emery is over Aston Villa. He's over the PSR issues and leaving. Neither Chris or I believe that. We're pouring a ton of cold water on that one. Next. Correct. Chris, John McGinn will not play for us again this season.
I don't pour any cold water on that. I think that's a very real possibility that, given the latest update from Unai Emery, and that may change between now when we're recording and Friday when this hits your feeds, or late Thursday night in the East Coast. I'm concerned. The report from Emery is not good. He said that McGinn's going to be out some weeks, and that he's seeking second opinions from another doctor. So that tells me that, and I'm purely speculating. That tells me that someone told him that you're not going to play again this season, and McGinn is looking for someone who will tell him that he will play again this season. That's my read on it. So no cold water.
Yeah, that tells me that surgery is on the table, and he's looking for a second opinion on whether rehab alone can fix whatever he's got going on. Some weeks to me means at minimum like 6 to 8, which already puts us, I mean, we're in February, so that puts us like towards the end of April. And at that point, how many weeks are left? 2. Potential World Cup coming up. I'm sure he's trying to figure out how he can be ready for that. This feels very similar to the Kamara situation where we all saw the injury. If it was just a knock, if it was just a tweak, if it was a whatever, the club would know that fairly quickly. This seems like something that's dragging on because they're looking for any sort of second, third, fourth, fifth opinion to tell them otherwise, and they're getting the same answer over and over again. So I agree. I don't think that he's going to play for Aston Villa again this season, which sucks because this was probably his best year in a Villa shirt.
And that's saying something.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, I know we're going to have so much fun with this one. And this is, for anyone who doubts whether we actually pull these from social media or not to pull cold water, I have the receipts. We can retweet it to the show account if anyone doesn't believe us. But someone has said this. Chris Heck deserves an apology.
No cold water from me. Yes. But I mean, he doesn't deserve apologies from me or you.
No.
But from Villa fans, not all of them, but many of them.
Hashtag Dan Bardell.
Like, yeah, yes.
We'll call it out. Yeah.
He deserves an apology.
Hashtag my old man said.
I know that he did some things that some folks at the club did not appreciate, but he did those things to grow the club and to get the club where they need to be. And you and I have had this conversation as it was happening. These are the things that need to happen to get the club where they need to be, to compete in Europe and with the big six clubs, because we're still miles off of it, despite 48% growth in revenue. And some of that's the Champions League. I'm sorry, some of that is European play, but this was a non-Champions League year. That we're looking at in terms of the books, and they still grew 48%. But that's the tours in America. The focus on Times Square, where they had the launch for the kit and all that stuff. All of the commercialization around the ground, the forthcoming entertainment district, whatever they're calling that there in the parking lot. All that stuff, as much as some old school hardcore fans don't like it, that's what you need to make money. And money is how we get to stay in Europe. Otherwise, we don't stay, and we just go back to the way things were. And I don't want to go back to the way things were. So yes, apologize to Chris Heck. No cold water. Apologize. All of you, apologize.
Completely agree. You saw the biggest jumps in commercial revenue, in match day revenue, the areas that it seemed like he was continually hammered by the online Villarati. It worked. It brought squad cost ratio down. Villa are now the 10th highest revenue in Europe, I think, according to Forbes.
14th. 7th in the Premier League, 14th overall.
Exactly. And that's exactly what we need to continue to grow, that, to continue to compete for Champions League places, to pay the wages that we want, to get the guys in that we need to keep this club growing, to keep Unai Emery interested, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're demanding apologies from everybody for Chris Heck. Shout out Dan Bardell. Shout out my old man said. All right, those are our cold waters. Chris, let's turn our attention to Sunday. You just alluded to it. Match against Newcastle. 9 a.m. East Coast time, I believe, up at St. James Park. First match of the season, 0-0. It was disgustingly boring to watch on both ends. Really wish I could have that 90 minutes back. There's nothing else to say about it. So let's just turn ahead to what we've seen from Newcastle since then. For large parts of the season, they really were just kind of hovering around mid-table, seeing calls for Eddie Howe's job, saying that he had reached his ceiling because of the way that he wanted to play with them and all those kinds of things. They actually now are up to 8th on 33 points, plus 5 goal difference, 2 points back of 5th place Manchester United. And so it's really interesting looking at them, right? On the one hand, I don't want to forget about them in the second half run. It seems like every year they start to make some assault up the table. Their first Champions League year, I feel like they hovered around mid-table for most of it, and then they just tore tore up the table over the second half, ultimately finishing 6th. We saw obviously them beating us to the Champions League place last year due to a decently strong finish. And yet this jump from mid-table to 8th, we do have to be honest, is a little bit chalked up to an easy run of fixtures where they've had 3 wins and 1 draw. They beat Burnley. They beat Palace, who can't beat anyone, even Aston Villa nowadays. They barely beat Leeds 4-3, and then they actually had a 0-0 draw with, are we going to call them a resurgent Wolves? I don't know.
I mean, they can't be anything else, right?
Yeah. And yet outside of that, they went to penalties against Bournemouth in the FA Cup. They lost 2-0 to City in the League's Cup first leg of the semifinal. And before that, they were on an atrocious run of fixtures where, since I want to say like early November, their only good result could be considered a 4-1 win over Everton. So I don't really know what to think of Newcastle this year or what to really expect out of them. Do you?
I don't, and part of that though is also they've got quite a few at least small nagging injuries that are hanging around. Like, is Bruno Guimaraes going to play? I don't know for a fact that he is. He came off in their last game, and the last update from Eddie Howe was nothing of any kind of certainty. So
All he said was that it was worrying.
Yeah, like Dan Burn is injured. Fabian
I've
Schär
actually got
out.
the whole list if you want.
Yeah.
Schär, Burn, Osula, Livramento, Jacob Murphy, and Guimaraes.
Yeah,
all should be out.
All
Sunday.
Big players, like decent players for them. Particularly Guimaraes. And the player, I think, and you and I have talked about him before. The player for me that seems to haunt Villa more than Dan Burn, even though I recall at least 17 goals that Dan Burn has scored against Villa. I think it was only one, but Tonali always seems to play well, and he at least when he plays against Villa seems to almost be like the Yuri Tielemans, where he can find that big ball that either is coming across the pitch or is breaking the line. Like he always seemed to be involved in their goal actions, and there have been plenty because God knows that Eddie Howe has mostly had Aston Villa's number, particularly at home.
Tonali scored a banger against Aston Villa too, right?
That's right. Like last year, I think. Was it last year? Yeah. But like he always seems to be involved, and I mean he's a great player. He's a player I know that you admire as well for his ability to pick a pass, because we've talked about it before. But I think that like you're almost looking at two squads of like just who can get to the field, like who can field the better 11 out of all the injuries that they've got. Seems to be what we're looking at here.
Yeah, and when we look at their style of play, probably not that surprising from what Newcastle has been in the past. They don't possess the ball a ton. They don't shoot the ball a ton. I think they've got something around 12 shots per game. What's interesting is when they play at home, they actually possess the ball 5 percentage points less, and yet they get 2 or 3 more shots. And so it's almost like they're playing at home like a typical away team, sitting back, trying to counter, and just firing off a bunch of shots that way. I found that interesting to try and game plan against. They're not super aggressive defensively. They're weak to protecting the lead. So if they go ahead, Villa certainly aren't out of it. We know how good Villa are playing from behind. And not great at defending counters. So when you think about what Villa want to do, that slow, fast, there were certainly a lot of counters in the Fenerbahce match earlier today. I think that all of this points to a team that is probably weak in the ways that Villa right now is positioned to exploit.
I hope so, but Newcastle away is a difficult match. Quick turnaround from the European game, and then you have to travel to Newcastle to get there. And Villa under Unai Emery have traditionally not. I think I've got that right. Have not played well there.
I don't know if we've won at St. James.
It's I like what you're saying, and I agree. I think that there are some things. about Newcastle that make you hopeful as a Villa fan. And so I think if you consider how this game might go, if Newcastle sit back, that allows Villa to do what they want to do and control the ball through the middle. And hopefully you have the resurgent Jadon Sancho out there scoring goals. But no, I mean, but in all honesty, with Villa controlling the ball, I expect that you're going to have to see some shots from distance to try and break up what will be a well organized Newcastle defense in that spot. But then one thing that Newcastle do not do well is defend the counterattack. So do you, if you're Unai Emery, try to draw them out some from that defensive position that they like to take up at home and try to utilize space try to create space by drawing them out. And we saw that today against Fenerbahce, by the way, where Fener were trying to sit back and Villa were just holding the ball in their own third and waiting. I mean, and I mean literally just standing on it and waiting for someone to come up to try and create gaps in the middle of the field. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out, especially in the first half. My hope would be that Villa can kind of take some of the air out and really quiet the crowd up there and make it a little more comfortable to play because it's been a tough place for Villa lately.
The Villa Park Arsenal approach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Talking about a couple players, Nick Voltamonde seems to be a good signing for them. I think 7 goals already. Guimaraes actually is their goal leader, 8 goals, believe it or not, coming out of midfield, and 7 of them have come at home. So not having him there certainly inhibits something that they've found successful offensively. So given all of that, Chris, what do you expect to see from Aston Villa? You gave us a little bit of the tactics, but who's going to be out there to execute it?
So as of right now, I don't know about the health of Emi Martinez. So until we hear differently, you have to figure it's Marco Bizot with an asterisk that if Martinez is healthy, he's going to play.
Sure.
Ash, Konsa, Pau, Luka Dean, and I'm doing this off the top of my head. I'm pulling an Alex right here. I did not write these down, so I might end up with 13 players. From there, we'll go. I think you'll see Sancho again, Morgan Rogers, Emi Buendia, and Ollie Watkins. So that's pretty much the lineup you had today with 2 subs at most, with 3 subs at most. So that's what I'm going to go with. What about you?
You just named 9 players, so you're really
short. Oh my gosh! Oh, I forgot the defensive mid. All right, it's Onana and Tielemans. I'm sorry,
I'm gonna go too high, and you.
Yeah, I skipped the defensive midfielders. So it's Onana and Tielemans in the defensive midfield.
Okay, so Bogard drops to the bench.
That's I think with assuming Onana is healthy, I think those 15 minutes were a fitness test in a way. So I did not mean to skip the defensive midfield entirely, but we will field 2 players in defensive midfield. Yeah.
Okay.
It would be great if we didn't. Like what just
that'd be ballsy. Just roll out with 9 players. So I will say the same thing for goalie. Along the back line, the only difference that I have is Ian Maatsen starting, just because Unai Emery seems to continually rotate those 2 guys. Luka Dean started today, so Ian Maatsen starts on Sunday. It is interesting. This is the first time in a long time that we would be able to do the triumvirate in midfield that puts Youri Tielemans at the 10. Theoretically, you could do Bogard, Onana, and Youri. The problem with that is that then we have no substitutes if any one of them gets knocked out in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. I don't think that's going to be the move. Emi and Rogers essentially pick themselves at this point, and so does Ollie Watkins, as I mentioned earlier. No subs for that. So yeah, let's say Onana Tielemans. You're probably right. Unai, when it's been available to him this year, despite good play, has typically dropped Bogard to the bench. So let's do that again. And on the right wing, there's been fitness concerns about Sancho all year long. And so, he went 75 today, 2-day turnaround, hasn't gone 90 minutes that I can think of in a Villa shirt. I don't think that he's getting back-to-back starts,
So who is it?
which means that it's probably Evan Gasson, right?
Not Leon Bailey.
I want to say Leon Bailey, but seeing the news immediately that other clubs are interested in him makes me skeptical that they would put him out there.
What about the idea that they're putting him out in the shop window, like that,
Maybe. If he plays, I think he's staying.
Okay.
That'll be my bold prediction. If he plays, he's staying.
If he plays, he stays, would have been the way to say that.
Why? Playing, staying rhymes just the same as play, stays.
If he plays, he stays. Or he's staying.
Oh, did I?
It doesn't matter.
You're right.
Like you want to talk about.
Yeah. You're right. We need to keep our conjunctions consistent. How's that for alliteration?
There you go.
Still no Allison in the squad, by the way, which was interesting given the first comments when he came out. I don't know what to make of that, but I assume he's still getting acclimated to the style of play. Jacob Tanswell did report that at least the squad is very impressed by his pace and power. So good news, might be useful over the stretch run. Who knows?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Chris, couple days off. Who knows if we'll have power to watch this game on Sunday or to record on Sunday night, given the storm. So everybody, we will do our best to get you something Sunday evening. But as Chris alluded to earlier, there is a massive snow and ice storm that is crushing the United States at the moment. Supposed to roll through our area on Sunday. I've already gotten texts from our utility company saying that we should expect power outages. So who knows when you will see us again, if ever again. So until we hit your feeds, as always, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.